started recording on its own.
How?
You just said 3, 2, 1.
Jesus.
Wow.
This one magical.
Hi guys, welcome to our channel.
Okay.
And today,
How come you started recording by itself?
hi guys, welcome to our channel. I'm Will, and this is
CC.
and we are CC and Will. So today we're talking about something which happens in society, but people might not talk about it, but it's real. We'll call it transactional marriage.
Marriage as transactions.
Exactly. In some cases, it might be somebody getting into a marriage purely for financial gain.
Yes. And sometimes these transactional marriages can even be other things outside of material things. It can even be, in some cases, sex. Sometimes it can even be age.
Yes.
When somebody has become old.
Yes. So you
and the
want
person now needs to marry.
You just need to get married. Maybe you feel your biological clock is ticking.
And in cases of women, you just want to have a baby quickly.
Yeah. And you know, in this latest migration, people going abroad and different things, some people get into the relationship purely to get paperwork.
Yes. How will you define transactional
A transactional marriage is something that has self-benefit rather than coming into the relationship for the real reasons, which is love,
growth,
service, growth, spiritual connection. But you feel you have to benefit something from that relationship, which is most likely transactional.
Exactly.
And the ones that we can really touch are, one, maybe your biological clock is ticking, you just want to have a baby, right? So you just find you find a guy or you find a lady and you say, you know what,
let's come together and procreate. So the procreation in that case becomes the transaction.
Exactly.
Right.
In some cases, somebody who is not financially okay decides they want to marry a rich man or a rich woman, you know, and they just go into that relationship purely because they want to gain financially. Drive a nice car, have a nice house, you know, but they're not necessarily invested emotionally in that relationship.
Exactly.
You know? And then the third one is obviously like the one I just told you about, where, you know, people are migrating and they're going to another country, and you just hear that, oh, this guy is in America. Is now married to this person that you never knew of before, but they're just married.
Exactly. Exactly. So the thing is, why it was when I heard the word transactional marriage, it didn't sound right. Because really and truly, there are two things that shouldn't be put together. Marriage and a transaction shouldn't be in the same sentence.
Exactly. Because,
you know, marriage has to be for the purposes of why God created marriage, which is love, procreation, and companionship, being together with one another.
Right.
While a transaction is an exchange of goods and services. So when you put the two together, you find that there's a problem.
Yeah, there's a recipe for disaster.
It's a recipe for disaster.
You know, a lot of the time, people do it. People are in marriages that are transactional. You know, what ends up happening...
Our marriage transactional.
This is pure love. Pure love. And that's what makes the relationship work and makes it stay and makes it hold water. Because if it's transactional, if the transaction is over, you know, in marriage we say for richer, for poor, for better, for worse. So if you go in there and you're looking for money and then the money runs out, it'll be easier for you to now exit the relationship, because you're not really in it for anything else other than the money. And this is a very dangerous trait.
It is. And the problem with a lot of relationships today, I think the age we're living in is actually quite dangerous, where a lot of things are happening. And I think these things have always been happening.
Yes.
But the difference is now we hear about them more, maybe because of social media and all of that.
Yeah.
So you begin to find that there's a lot going on in marriages, a lot of dysfunctionalities, which are basically being swept under the carpet because, one, people have already made their choices, probably realized they made a mistake, or probably realized they're in it for that transaction.
Exactly.
And there's no platform to really, or solution to sort of climb out of it. So what should you do if you find yourself in a transactional marriage?
I think the starting point is that the foundation and the root of the marriage, people should open their eyes and see what their relationship is really founded on. I always give an example of our own marriage, that when we started our marriage, I didn't have that much money. you didn't have that much money. You know, we were just
two
people,
a young couple,
two professionals coming together.
working.
Yeah, and we're attracted to each other. You know, we fell in love very quickly. And it wasn't based on anything material. It wasn't based on anything transactional. We just actually, it was one of those love stories.
In fact, it was even a foolish.
Yeah,
if we really think about
in hindsight, it was like we didn't really think through a lot of things. We just decided.
We didn't date for a long time. We just basically was like, so we'd met at work, and he was toasting me at work, but I said no. I'm
she
not,
was refusing.
I'm not going to do that.
She stood me up.
Yes,
yeah.
You know,
Well,
and we started dating 8 months after.
Yeah.
We stopped
after she
together.
tracked me down. She had to track me down.
Track you down. I didn't track you down. I would say we were pretty young at the time, and you know, certain questions that we're also supposed to ask each other, we didn't ask.
Yeah.
Because we were just going with the flow
with the rhythm,
of just being in love and, you know, excited about starting a life together.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is, if you do find yourself in a transactional marriage, is there like a solution of coming out of it? Yes, there is. I think one of the ways, because if you really look at Indian marriages, which is arranged marriages, you know, which a lot of popularity lies with the Indians, you know, how they do a lot of Asian culture. They do a lot of arranged marriages. It's amazing that these marriages, I would call them transactional marriages as well, because it's basically bringing two people together who don't know anything about each other, who might not necessarily have anything in common, but they bring them together. I think the commonality is their culture and their heritage and their foundation being the same. And it's weird that these marriages work more than even Christian marriages today, where people are throwing themselves in and out of the marital home. So how come these Asian marriages, which we would call transactional as well, because sometimes these parents will bring their kids together, maybe one child is growing older, and they want that child to get married before the eggs freeze up or whatever.
I think those relationships, it's a little bit different, but I think the reason why they last is because the families are in it, and you know, they're the ones that kind of pick the personality of the son, pick the personality of the lady, and say, hey, these two can come together. And if anything,
they're very disciplined and strict.
And if anything happens, like challenges in the marriage, it is easier. The family comes together and tries to find ways to resolve these issues as a family. So when they say that it takes a community or it takes a village to raise a child and all these different things, those little factors make a big difference in a marriage. For example, even in our own marriage, if we were just on our own and we were trying to resolve things by ourselves without a couple of people coming in and intervening,
we don't throw away.
It would have gone the other way. They say when you marry your wife, you marry her family. When you marry your husband, you marry their family. So there has to be that family support.
I think we need to do another video in-laws.
Yeah, true, definitely, because it's another ball game.
It's another ball game altogether, because those are real challenges that happen in marriages. So if you do find yourself in a transactional relationship, how and what do I mean? Sometimes I'll talk for women. We women sometimes get married to guys for different reasons. But regardless of what that reason is you find yourself sometimes stuck in the house with somebody who you don't necessarily love, where the person even starts their mannerisms and things they do start irritating you. Things they do, you can't really stomach it. That's when you know that there might be some sort of transaction going on there that is not really the real reason why you entered in the first place. Do you understand? Because I believe if you love someone, you should be able to, what's the word? You should be able to tolerate certain things that they do. It shouldn't get to you that much. You know, it's the whole point of living together, where you come together in all of the positive things you have to offer, and even their negative peeves, you have to be able to take it. So if you find yourself in that situation, I think it's basically turning to God, because only God can give you that wisdom and discipline in navigating your next steps.
You see, one of the things that I faced during our marriage is that, you know, sometimes she will do things that irritate me. I will do things that irritate her. And you start asking yourself, why did I marry this woman?
Why did I marry this man?
Why did she marry this man? But when you actually understand why God created marriage, you'll know that part of the reason you are in this marriage is because challenges are going to be put in front of you, irritations will be put in front of you, things that you don't like might be put in front of you. Jesus carried the cross for us, and he saved us from sin. So each of us have a cross that we have to carry. And it's not to say you should tolerate abuse or things that are so negative, but when little things are happening that maybe cause you to feel a level of irritation, I think when you turn to why God created marriage, which is marriage is supposed to be me serving my spouse, my wife serving me. And when two people are in service to each other, you're actually more interested in how that person is happy, how that person is fulfilled. And you're spending your time serving that person, because Jesus came to serve us. He served his disciples. He taught them. He raised them. So there's a lot more work required in marriage than just transactions or just surface. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into marriage that we all need to know that, if this person wasn't here for me, I wouldn't be the person I am today. If I am not there for her.
Yeah, but I think the younger generation, really, they've lost the whole, and I'm not trying to generalize, but they've lost the whole idea
the
of
meaning.
the meaning and the foundation of marriage.
Yeah.
You would find a lot more long suffering coming from our mothers,
Yes.
from the older generation.
Yeah.
I was reading a story yesterday that was talking about a man who had a wife that had a serious level of infidelity. So I think for them, probably he entered the marriage because he loved her, and she entered the marriage for other reasons apart from love. Because according to what he said, she had an insatiable
need.
How do they say it? Insatiable need for sex. And that became the catalyst of her being in that marriage, where when she's not getting it from her husband, she's going outside to get it from other men. And it progressed to the point where the man couldn't take it anymore, and he did something so horrible. He committed suicide, which was, in fact, I wish I never read that, because it sort of made me, it opened up, how do I put it? There are certain things that when you read it or when you see it, it does something to your mind, and it's, it was a bit too much information for me to handle.
Exactly.
So what I feel in that case was, she didn't get into the marriage for the right reasons. Because even if you do have a sex addiction, I think they put these things in calling it names. There's nothing that cannot be sorted out or fixed on the cross. When you take that problem to God, you find that even if your solution is not coming immediately, you will find that the solution would start from that cross.
Exactly.
And it would find a way of easing out if you stay focused on that cross. But most people don't want to do that. They want to find their own way and their own solutions.
Exactly. They say when a couple comes together, it's like both of you should seek God individually. Right? And it's like a mountain, right?
Yeah, but people are fanatics. So
yes.
When I say fanatics, let me give you an example. Some people will put God on their feed from morning till night, right? They would post about God, they will preach about God, they have scriptures in their fingertips. I know people who do this personally. But when it comes to the ABC of their life, you don't find that there's a correlationship
and that's
with
where
things
the
that they
disconnect
post.
is.
Yes, with things they post and things that they do.
What I've come to realize is that it's not about what somebody posts. In the Bible it says, by their fruits
you shall know them.
So even though you can speak a good talk and preach and quote Bible verses and act as if you're as Christian as they come, if your relationship with the people around you is toxic and is negative, then it's not a reflection of Christ. Because we're supposed to be ambassadors of Christ. And ambassadors of Christ means we act like Christ. He gave the example and said, this is how I want you to treat people. This is how I want you to forgive people. This is how I want you to treat others the way you would like to be treated. So the moment you're not doing that, it means you're not actually enacting the real Christianity. So we always say in all of our videos that the biggest part of solving most of our problems starts from doing things God's way.
Yes.
Right. So I started realizing along the way in the relationship that I was doing things in a way that was not necessarily God's way, but it was the devil's way, and if the devil's way is prevailing over God's way, obviously something is not going to go well in the relationship. But when I started seeking God individually, making choices individually, that, you know what, I want to make a covenant with God about A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then I start sticking to that in terms of my actions and my behaviors, then if I put that first in my actions, I found that it started creating some sort of, when something is hard, like if you're trying to screw something and it's hard and you put some oil and the oil makes the screw a little bit softer. When you put the word of God in your words, in your actions, in things that you're doing, it makes the situation that was tense before a little bit softer, and you start seeing solutions starting to come and the boat loosening. So that really, to me, is one of the best ways that you can start fixing a relationship that potentially was a transactional relationship.
Yes.
But now you're trying to come back to the foundation of what a marriage should be. And then you start saying, you know what, I know.
So if you are not in love with your partner, what do you do?
Love is a choice. I've always said this thing. Love, you choose to love. You can maybe say, oh, I met this person, I don't like them. You can not like somebody, but you can still love them. Sometimes I don't like you.
Sometimes I don't like you.
Liking is different from loving. Loving means that you are making the choice that even in those tough times where the person is doing things that might not make you happy, you're going to choose to love them. You're going to hold them when they are crying and they are shouting at you because probably they don't know what they're doing. Because even Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And that means he loved his disciples, people around him, so much that even though they were doing something bad, he was willing to forgive them, because forgiveness is part of love. You love when you forgive. If you don't forgive, you're not loving.
So for me, I just think, as Will said, the easiest way to do it is not just the easiest way, it's the only way.
The only way.
Because you can read all the books on marriage, you can watch all the videos on marriage, you can read all the scriptures on marriage, but if you are not aligning that to your lifestyle, if you are not aligning it to who you really are, because I get tired of seeing people, and it's not me judging them, it's the fact that I've noticed it so many times, where people are ready to live a certain type or give or emit a certain perception of themselves to others about being godly, but there's no correlation
to their lifestyle.
You know, these people harbor a lot of, like the rest of us, they harbor a lot of issues, but they choose to put that front.
Pretend.
And it's a screen. It's actually a green screen. It's a smoke screen. It's a green screen where you put a front of being holy. And if you see in the Bible, Jesus talks about the Pharisees and the scribes positioning themselves as though that they even knew more than he did, as though that they were better than him, as though that they had a certain level of class, you know. And that's what I found, that they class themselves or they peg themselves slightly higher above you in terms of spirituality. Oh no, you don't understand what I'm saying. Oh no, this is what I'm doing spiritually. Oh no, this is how I believe spiritually. But there's no correlation of how they depict the Bible to themselves. And those are the people that you really need to watch out for. You need to understand that this is how they are, because if you don't understand, you would allow them to affect your own level of spirituality, because when you see what they do, it's easy to get into that trap where you now get disappointed in what they do, and you're like, you know what, this whole thing is a sham. It's not. It's an individual choice. It's an individual sacrifice that you decide. So instead of looking at your partner saying, oh, you know what, my partner should become more religious, no, it's putting your marriage together in the hands of God, which means both of you are working in Christ together. And then individually, you also train and build up muscles. Because if you go to the gym and you don't have any qualms going to the gym to work out, why shouldn't you work on your own spirituality?
Exactly, exercise that
on
muscle.
Your own, as well as together.
Exercise that muscle.
Exactly, you need to, because that's the only way it can garner the strength it needs. Because marriage is a journey. Most people get on that wedding the wedding day. They are slaying, making up, renting wig for the wedding day. That's the
wedding. The wedding is the transaction. People are getting married to have a wedding.
Exactly.
And then after the wedding, there's no marriage.
There's too much energy, too much money, too much interest in the wedding day.
Showmanship.
Exactly. Because if you're going on a marathon and you start running,
sprinting,
before you get up to 500 kilometers, you are out of breath.